Very good evening, everyone. I think Rohit can hear me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear.
Thank you, Rohit. Yeah. I think we can start now. Thank you for having, thank you for accepting our invitation as a speaker for TaxScan's knowledge series. Very warm welcome, Rohit, and all the participants. I'm not taking much time and directly giving access to Rohit. Rohit, you can take it forward.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Hello and very good evening to all the viewers. And first of all, I'd like to thanks to TechScan team for organizing this webinar series for the knowledge enhancing sessions. So, uh, so in today's webinar, we will discuss the two recent Supreme Court ruling which have recently come. First is basically on the GST levy on the ocean freight, which is Mohit Minerals, and second one is service tax leviability on the manpower supply uh, due to the secondment of employees, which has come under the Northern Operating Ruling. So I'll cover the first one here. So if so, we can discuss first what is a transaction on which there is a dispute regarding the ocean freight. So here the importer enters into a contract with the foreign supplier for supply of goods on CIF basis. And in a typical CIF transaction, the foreign supplier is liable to deliver the goods till the custom port of Indian importer. And for that, that foreign supplier engages a shipping line, which is also located outside India. That is a foreign shipping line. And that foreign shipping line transport the goods till the custom import of India. And that foreign supplier is liable to pay consideration to the foreign shipping line. So in whole transaction, Indian importer is nowhere in the picture, and there is no privity of contract between the Indian importer and the foreign shipping line. Now, if understanding this transaction, and if we refer the relevant provision under GST, so first of all, there is section 5(3), which empowers central government to notify the services on which tax can be payable by the recipient under reverse charge basis. And for this, they have already issued a notification, which is notification number 10, which provides that importer shall be liable to pay tax on the ocean freight services. And they have also issued a notification under notification 8 2017 prescribing the 5% rate on the ocean freight services. Now the whole issue is, when importer is not the recipient of the services, how can they issue a notification deeming importer as a recipient of service under section 5 subsection 3 of the IGST Act? So this was the whole controversy in this issue, which came before the High Court judgment of the Gujarat High Court, which came up before the Gujarat High Court. So Gujarat High Court held that importer is can never be held as a recipient in as per the section 5(3) of the IGST Act, because section 5(3) is a charging provision which needs strict interpretation. And as per section 5(3), only a recipient of supply of service can be imposed liability of the RCM. Therefore, and they also held that because Article 265 provides levy and collection of tax authority by law alone, and it delegated legislation, which is the notification number 10, cannot provide a levy which is not there in the parent act. And there is also no provision for determination of time of supply and value of supply. And since importer is not a recipient, he cannot avail ITC on that supply. ITC is available only to the recipient of supply. They also discussed there is a dual levy in this transaction because importer has already paid IGST on the value of goods, and those value of goods has already included the cost of insurance and freight. Therefore, Gujarat High Court held that these notifications are ultra virus, and to this extent, they disregarded that RCM is not liable to be paid on the ocean freight. Now, department went into the appeal before the Supreme Court against the Gujarat High Court judgment. Now, Supreme Court discussed and observed that the notification issued under section 5(3) are not ultra virus. In fact, these are intra virus, because essential function of the legislature has not been delegated. And essential function, we mean by this that there are four pillars of a essential function of a levy. First is levy of tax. Second is person who is liable to pay tax. Third is rate. Fourth is value of supply. So Supreme Court observed that all the four things are already there in the Parent Act, and issuing a notification which deems importer as a recipient of service is only a clarificatory in nature. So they also discussed that importer is already, they also already discussed that importer is a recipient, and so they also discussed that importer is a recipient because there is a place of supply provision under section 13(9) of the IGST Act, which provides place of supply of services of transportation services. And there is section 293, which provides the recipient to be any person to whom supply is made. So on the basis of these two provision, they held that importer is a recipient of the services. Importer can be qualified as a recipient. They also discuss one interesting point that even if we assume that section 5(3) is not a proper a provision under which a notification can be issued, then source of power to notify importer as a recipient can also be traced to the section 5(4) of the IGST Act. Further, they held that there is sufficient territorial nexus because goods are coming to India and these goods will be consumed in India. And at last, they held that GST will not be leviable on this ocean freight because levying of GST on the service portion will violate the concept of the composite supply. So on the last ground, Supreme Court upheld the Gujarat High Court decision, and ultimately they held that GST is not leviable on the ocean freight. So if we see, the Supreme Court ruling is in favor of the taxpayers, and it is correct, but the reasoning adopted by the Supreme Court is not proper, and I would say that it has already opened up a new points for debate. So in our view, if we see, so section 5(3) means merits a strict interpretation. So section 5(3) cannot be loosely interpreted, and if only a recipient can be made liable to pay RCM, then importer cannot be made liable under this section. And section 5(4) also does not expand the scope of the recipient, because if we see the language of section 5(4), it also specified that certain class of registered person in respect of certain specified supplies can be made liable to pay taxes as a recipient of services. So in both the section, there cannot be any recipient, there cannot be deemed as a recipient, deemed importer as a recipient. Now, the last point is that transaction which the Supreme Court has already held that this transaction is violative nature of the composite supply. In our view, this transaction is only a single supply, because foreign supplier is ultimately supplying goods to the importer on the CIF basis, and there is no two or more supply for which they can qualify as a composite supply. So in our view, on the basis of these three reasons, the reasoning adopted by the ruling is incorrect. However, the ruling is in favor, so we cannot say much about that. And now it will be interesting to see that what will be the impact on the pending matter of the levy of service tax on the ocean freight, as there is already a favorable ruling in Gujarat High Court for the SAL steel. So it will be interesting to see what will be the fate of that issue. As a way forward, if I say taxpayer can consider issuing credit notes and claim refund for the past period, because the ocean freight was never GST on ocean freight was never leviable, and for future they can consider stop paying GST due to this favorable ruling. However, while doing these two things, taxpayer also needs to consider there can be a possibility that government makes a retrospective amendment, and we have seen in past due to High Court and Supreme Court decision, government has done that. So this is the whole issue and our interpretation and the way forward. I am happy to take any questions if you have at this point.
Participants can either type or you can raise your hands. I'll give you the speaking access as well. You can also type it in the chat box. We'll take it from there. Yeah, someone has raised the hands. Yeah.
So I can see this Abhishek Tulsian.
Yeah.
What is about FOB contract? So, sir, this particular ruling is only applicable on the CIF contract. FOB contract, I would say there is not much to discuss about that. And FOB contract in a typical FOB contract, because Indian importer only engages the foreign shipping line, so they always be deemed as an importer of service. So there is no controversy in that. But yeah, if we can see if someone's challenge is a FOB contract also, then we can do that. But yeah, FOB contract is not covered under this definition.
I think there are a few questions in the chat box. Should I read?
Yeah, I can. Actually, I'm not able to see anything. So can you just?
Yeah, because again, because
एक बार नीचे ना म्यूट कर देंगे. But there is double taxation in FOB on freight at the time of custom duty payment. Yeah. So Abhishek sir, double taxation argument was also taken before this Supreme Court bench. Supreme Court already considered the past matters in which there is a dual levy aspect, and in our view also, if the provisions under the Act provides that there can be a dual levy, then so dual levy needs to be properly authorized from the Parent Act. If there is no provision for the dual levy, then there cannot be dual levy by notification alone. Dual levy can be there only if the Parent Act provides that. So there cannot, so the FOB, if we say that GST on ocean freight cannot be struck down only due to the dual levy thing. So dual levy argument is very weak. Earlier we have paid GST on freight lately. Now department is asking for interest. So, sir, in this case, we can just file a letter with the department that since GST on ocean freight was never leviable, we are not liable to pay any interest on that. Should we pay RCM in ocean freight? Sir, if you are Rishpa, so Rishpa, if you are eligible to take credit on that and you don't have any accumulation, you should continue to pay RCM on ocean freight, because it is expected that in near future there will be a retrospective amendment. Can the ocean freight paid under RCM claimed as a refund if input tax credit is not utilized? Yeah, Ramana sir, surely RCM can be claimed as a refund if you have accumulated credit and you have already paid in the past. But yeah, you need to see whether the time limit of 2 years is already passed, or you also need to satisfy one aspect of unjust enrichment. So refund can be filed subject to these two conditions. Can we claim refund of ocean part? So Vishwanath, I have already answered this question. Yeah. So it seems we have already covered all the questions. Moving on to the second issue. Second issue is service tax levy on the secondment of employees in case of Northern Operating Systems ruling. So in this case, first we can understand the transaction first. The transaction between the Indian entity and the foreign entity, there were two agreements. First agreement was that Indian entity was providing back office support services to the foreign entity, and foreign entity was paying consideration to the Indian entity, and that consideration was cost plus markup basis. They also had a second agreement. As per the second agreement, foreign entity was deputing some employees to the Indian entity under the secondment contract. And the terms of contract, we can just refer once. Yeah. So seconded employees will continue to be on the foreign entity payroll for continuation of social security benefit, and Indian entity will be considered as an employer for all practical purpose, and they will also issue the employment letter. And the important terms is employees' remuneration will be determined in the foreign currency. Third thing was that foreign entity was liable to distribute employee salary, bonus, etc. And Indian entity will be reimbursing all these expenses to the foreign entity without markup. And terms and condition of employment with the foreign entity in case of seconded employees during this particular seconded period will cease to exist, and terms and condition of Indian entity will be in force. The role of foreign entity was restricted till the payroll service provider only. So the whole issue here was whether the foreign entity was providing manpower supply to the Indian entity, and the Indian entity is liable to pay GST under RCM on that. Sorry, service tax under RCM on that. So this is a service tax ruling. So there was issue of a service tax. So if we refer the judgment of the Supreme Court made following observations. First of all, they altogether disregarded the direction and control test, which has been consistently held important in the previous favorable rulings. They said there cannot be no single determinative factor, and all factors can be taken together. Then only we can consider a particular arrangement as a manpower supply or employer-employee relationship. Further, Indian entity had the operational and function control over the employees only for the purpose of performance of specific task assigned. These employees were highly qualified in their particular specialized area, and they were deputed to perform a specific task. And upon the end of the secondment period, these employees used to return to the foreign entity. Supreme Court also noted that there is existence of quid pro quo as Indian entity gets the benefit of the experts. And they also noted few judgments, Volkswagen and computer science, and they declared these judgments as unreasoned, and they don't have any precedential value. So basis of these terms of agreement and the observation, finally Supreme Court held that service tax is leviable under reverse charge, because foreign entity is providing manpower supply to the Indian entity, and these employees are not employees of the Indian entity. In fact, these are the employees of the foreign entity which have been loaned to the Indian entity. Supreme Court also negated the revenue neutrality argument, and they said this is not relevant. They held that extended period in this case is not invocable. So considering the decision, because it has a large implication on the industry and the taxpayer, because nowadays we see a lot of MNC have expat deputed from the foreign parent company in India, and they will need to see what is the implication of that. So in our view, this particular decision is only a fact specific judgment and can easily be distinguishable basis the terms of the agreement. And we also of the view that this judgment is incorrect on the following grounds, because Indian entity controls and does all the compliance as an employer, like under income tax law and all the employee related law. And they also look over the fact that there can be a concept of dual employment, which has already been recognized by the CBIC in during service tax via a draft circular. However, this circular was never published, but now I think there is need for this circular to be in the open. And they also disregarded the fact of revenue neutrality. Supreme Court correctly held that this extended period is not invoked, cannot be invocable, is not invocable in this case, and therefore service tax should not be leviable because there was an employer-employee relationship exist between Indian entity and the seconded employees. We expect that there can be another circular or instruction to clarify this issue, because this issue is very far-reaching implication for the industry, as we have seen in the Ultratech case and the Westinghouse judgment. So as a way forward, if I say, so in context of service tax, this now department cannot come and issue any demand to the taxpayers because most of the period is already barred by the time limitation, except for the period of April to June, and that to be while they invoke the extended period. But now this issue is equally relevant under GST, and taxpayer needs fresh analysis of the agreement whether there is any GST liability and the reverse charge or not. So suppose after analysis their agreement, they come to a conclusion that they need to pay GST on that also. So they can consider paying GST under protest and obviously opt for a valuation under second proviso of the Rule 28 of the GST rules. For future, they can consider paying IGST under reverse charge and take the input tax credit. And if all the two things are not possible, then they should obviously represent this particular issue with the CBIC for further clarification, so they can soon issue a clarification for the benefit of the taxpayer. And the last is that there will be a large income tax law as well, because up to this judgment, income tax and IDT law, indirect tax law, was in tandem only. So now, because of this judgment, there can be negative judgment in income tax law also. So they need to assess the impact on the income tax law only. So this is all from the second issue from my side. We will be happy to take any questions if you have. So Ramnath sir has asked, sir, I don't think so government will go for review petition in this case. And if that be the case, it will be very long to see. So we can wait for that. Yeah, Abdullah, any other questions do we have?
I think there is no other questions. Participants, do you have any question? Please put it on the chat box. We're happy to take that. I think Rohit, we can wait for another 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, I think people are typing.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Rishpa. Thank you, Anil. I think your doubts has been clear.
Great.
Anyone from the participants can ask the questions. Even if you want to ask him, Rohit, directly, please raise your hands. I'll give you the speaking access. Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
I think Purana. Rajesh Kumar has raised hand.
Yeah, Rajesh, I'll give you the speaking. Yeah, Rajesh, you can talk now. You can unmute yourself and talk now. Mr. Rajesh Kumar, you want to ask something? No, I think he...
We have got a question from Anil. Whether we're required to pay GST on ocean freight on CIF basis even after the Supreme Court judgment? No, sir, you're not required to pay GST on ocean freight on CI basis. However, that is with one caveat that unless government makes a retrospective amendment, then there will be an issue. So if you are getting any credit, then don't take any chances and you can just continue to pay. Legally, you're not required to pay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah. So I think Abdullah, we are good for today. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to say a few words like even when the Supreme Court judgment came out, I have also the same doubt when I read that particular judgment. Like it's been a long time. It was in my mind. So it's been cleared now, and thank you so much for this very precise session to the point. It's been a fantastic session. We would like to have more sessions on different topics as well. And thank you so much, Rohit. It's been wonderful to have you on board. And thank you to Nitya team for working behind this knowledgeable session. Thank you so much, Rohit.
Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you for considering me as a speaker for your session. Thank you. We will look forward to future more.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Thank you so much, all the participants and who are actively participating and asking the question. Thank you so much. We'll be come up with another knowledge series very soon. Thank you.